Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, John Opalewski, and a surprise guest. Go ahead, John, take it away.
Well, good morning, Jim. It's good to be with you and good to be with our guest, Jenni Catron today. It was really fun visiting with you guys a little bit beforehand, just catching up. I always enjoy that. That's actually my favorite part of all of this is spending time with Jim and our guests. So Jenni is with us today. Jenni has been on our podcast before, and I want to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to dive right into the questions. Jenni is a leadership coach. She's an author. She's a speaker, and she travels and speaks at conferences and churches all across our country, and really with a focus on helping others develop their leadership gifts and to lead confidently. And boy, if we ever needed confident leadership, we need it now. And Jenni has founded an organization. She's the founder and CEO of the Foresight Group. And that organization consults on leadership, team culture, and organizational health. And the subject that we wanted to talk about today is the impact of culture on the organization you lead. And so Jenni, thank you for joining us again. We know you're busy, and thank you for carving time out to be with us on the Leading from Alignment podcast today.
Well, John and Jim, thanks for having me. I always enjoy our conversations, and so I hope they're helpful to others too. But I know that I always benefit from being able to spend time with you guys. So thanks for having me again.
Right on. And before we forget, Jenni, my wife says hi because she loves you. You're
in
many ways all that she wants to be when she grows up. You know,
tell her I said hello. We've got to connect again soon.
Well, along the lines of connecting, you have been doing so much recently. I got to participate as an observer in your online seminar that you guys hosted. I know the Foresight Group's been busy. Just catch us up. What's happening in your world, and
sure.
How can people, connect with that on some level?
Yeah, that's great. Well, we've been busy. We obviously, our passion is cultivating healthy leaders to lead thriving organizations. And so we do that through a lot of executive coaching with ministry leaders and then working on employee culture. Like, how do we create a team that is aligned and effectively working together? And that's really like our heartbeat is, I think, especially in ministry, our first congregation, so to speak, is our staff. And so that's what we really try to do when we're working with ministry leaders in particular is help them develop a culture that is compelling, engaging, aligned with who we want to be, and ultimately helping us accomplish the work God's put on our heart. So that's our heartbeat as an organization. The reality is it is a complex environment for teams right now because of everything that COVID has created. It's just created a lot of complexity. And so this summer we were able to host the Culture Conference, and that's what you were referring to, Jim. And just a great opportunity. We did an online virtual conference called the Culture Conference, had some amazing speakers, both in the marketplace. Yeah, just and highly generous. Like I cannot emphasize to you guys how, from Carrie Newhoff to Patrick Lencioni, Deanne Turner, Jerry Hurley from Life Church. I mean, just a remarkable group of people who believe in the health of teams and leaders so much that this was a free conference. And so they all were so generous in giving their time and their thought leadership to it. So we were able to do that. We had almost 4,500 people a part of the conference. So that
Fantastic.
was such a gift to be able to speak into so many leaders and their teams. And then, but you can still actually catch the Culture Conference. We just are releasing a team edition where you can take each of the individual sessions, and then we have a guided workbook so that you can take it and use it like a team development tool. Take the sessions, do a discussion with your team around each of the topics. And there's like some conflict management sessions. There's what do we value as a staff, and how do we make sure that guides how we work together. So that all releases here within the next week. So I'm sure by the time this airs, the Team Culture Edition is available, and you can go to our website to find that, getforesight.com. But
I highly
so
recommend it. I
been a lot of work.
Every one, but the ones that I saw were all just top notch. And
Thank you.
I read this guy's book, and now he's in my family room talking to me about being a leader. That's pretty cool.
Again, every one of them, I just kind of pinch myself because they were so incredibly generous and wanted to invest in leaders. So it was a fun experience, but I'm not going to lie. It had us busy. And we're grateful as a team at Foresight, but we're still kind of catching our breath after doing that event this summer. So that was a long answer to your question of what have we been up to?
You've been up to a lot. That's why.
Yeah. So Jenni, as you work with organizations across the country, what are some recent trends that you're noticing?
Sure. Yeah, I think, so again, I'm going to be looking at the dynamics of team and leaders and all of that. So that's going to be my bias because there's a lot of things that we're dealing with. But a trend for sure is just the fatigue of leaders, that leaders are tired. This has been hard. Yep. And I think in some ways, it's almost permission to acknowledge that, because most of the leaders that I'm talking to, they, we feel the responsibility of leading and helping chart the direction and help guide others. And after a while, if you haven't had a chance to rejuvenate, refresh, that fatigue is real. And so I definitely see that. And I think my encouragement there to leaders is, hey, make sure you've got some support, whether that's just a peer group, whether that's a coach, but don't do it alone, because I think we're just tired. So I see that. Secondly, our teams are tired, and our teams are, they're fractured because to some degree, we're all still doing a little bit of hybrid office work. We're even trying to figure out what is our expectation of, do we all come back to the office? And there's varying degrees of this, depending on where you are in the country and, and what decisions you've made. But our staff have different expectations. They're dealing with different dynamics because they still are juggling, complex family dynamics and so forth. So as much as we, in some ways, are trying to live with the virus and kind of keep doing life, it's created complexity for everybody on our team. And so that's created some fractures in communication, because we're trying to help everybody manage and make the adjustments they need to make to, deal with kids' schedules and or work from home some, or whatever the situation might call for. So what I'm seeing fractures in team connection, culture, just because of all of these other external factors weighing on us.
Jenni, I'd like to kind of probe that a little bit with you. I don't know if this is the same thing, but I've noticed with our clients that there is this, you use the word fracture with teams. I'm noticing more of a siloed experience as well with leaders where, they're doing their thing, right? They're taking care of their department, but the collaboration seems to really be less than it used to be. And I think it's causing some real problems. Is that similar? Am I talking about the same thing?
I think you articulated it better. I think that in some ways, because we just out of a need to focus or at least control what I can control, and then I'm not in natural proximity as much to other coworkers where we are just naturally collaborating. And I think, again, when we all ended up having to work from home for whatever period of time, we built new habits and behaviors. And so then we were out of proximity to other people to just naturally connect, or, hey, can I get your thoughts on this? Or give me, speak into this for me, or, hey, can you pop into this meeting? Because I really think we need to make sure kids ministry is speaking into this idea that we have for first impressions, or, whatever it might be. And so then we've just gotten laser focused and, like you said, siloed in the area that we're in, and we're not naturally engaging and collaborating. And so I would say, I think you said it better, but that's exactly it.
Okay.
And it's understandable, but I think that's where we as leaders have to recognize this is the drift. And that's not going to ultimately lead to a great destination if we don't course correct.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's so good.
We've been using the word culture quite a bit, but I wonder if you wouldn't take just a minute and say, when you say culture, because there's like the European culture, or there's the bowling alley culture, or when you say culture, give us a working definition of what you mean when you say we're helping develop an organization's culture.
That's a great question, Jim, because there it is. That word culture can be used for a lot of things. When I'm speaking to it, I'm speaking about specifically the dynamics of a team. And my definition of culture would be how we work together to achieve our mission. So it's clarity of who we are and how we work together to achieve our mission. And so clarity of who we are, how we work, and with the goal of, because we're a working team, we're doing this to achieve something together. So that clarity of who we are and how we work, and the how we work is kind of the linchpin there of what's that? Because we've all been a part of an organization, a culture within an organization where it was energizing, exciting, collaborative. You loved being with the people that you're with. Yeah. And we've also, most of us have experienced the opposite of that, where it's like, oh, I dread going in or having to call this person or talk to this person, or we can't get anything done because everything's kind of like quicksand organizationally. And so that's what we mean. Who are we and how do we work together to achieve our mission when we're talking about culture?
We talk about, to our congregation, we talk about the culture of our church. I'll say, culture is one of those things that works for you even when you're not working, continues to speak when the sermon's over with. It's what people do when no one tells them what to do. It's become our culture. Would you agree with that as a working definition to some degree, or part of a working definition?
Yes, exactly. Because it's an overflow of who we are. And it exists whether we acknowledge it or not, right? Like, so there is I often say, like, think about the places that you enjoy going to, it might be stores or environments or something, and you go there because you like the culture, you like the experience, you like
Home
how
Depot,
it makes
sister. Home Depot, preach it. That's good. Yeah.
Right. Or you don't go there because you don't like, I joke all the time because years ago, when Circuit City stores were still in business, my husband would always want to go to Circuit City because it was actually just convenient to our house. And I would beg him to go 10 miles down the road to go to Best Buy because I just did not like the Circuit City culture. The environment was kind of dingy, and the salespeople, I think, were paid on commission, so they kind of swarmed you, and it was like, and I clearly was not very engaged in the store in general. And it was like, they still were like descending upon me. And I'm like, can't you tell that I'm not the one shopping? It's what, so I feel it's just an example of in a very simplistic form, that's the environment or that's the experience culture creates. And that's why it's so important, especially in so obviously, I love, Jim, you use the example for your church, like the culture you create, who you are as a church is either attracting or repelling people, right? What they experience when they walk in those doors is either attracting or repelling people. And the clearer we are about who we are and how we work or serve together to achieve our mission, the more distinctly, because we have some leverage over that culture if we're intentional with it.
Sure.
And then the same is true for our teams. And, so creating an environment where employees are engaged, they want to be there, they want to accomplish this mission. And let's be honest, ministry teams, we're never overstaffed. We're typically understaffed. Our job descriptions and our to-do lists are longer than we have hours in a day. Our salaries are not, we're not here for the money. It's in ministry, I hope. And so part of our responsibility as leaders is to make sure, hey, how am I creating an environment, a culture for my team that attracts and retains the best people? Because there's also, we're hearing so much right now just in culture at large around the great resignation, how the high levels of turnover, people are rethinking priorities, what matters to them, where they want to be. And that is going to affect all of our teams. And so, again, clearly I have no passion around this topic. But I think recognizing that we as leaders have influence, a great deal of influence over that, and realizing that creating an environment that our employees want to be a part of is one of the best things we can do to keep great talent and great leaders.
And Jenni, Jim and I just did a series of podcasts on this subject. It's really fascinating that you're pushing up on this so hard. Most of the things I believe that are retention specific don't cost you a dime.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, appreciation, clarity,
yes,
celebrating the right behaviors, and I think holding people accountable for the wrong behaviors actually improves morale, right? And
yes.
and I think that sometimes we think we have to pay the most money, or we've got to have some sort of gizmo or gadget that will keep people, when it's just some of those basic
exactly right.
behaviors, right? And so I just feel like what you're saying is just reverberating what we've been talking about. I think this team, you talked about what you're seeing. I think we're seeing similarly the struggle to hire, retain teams, and then when it's time for them to move on, there's a big struggle there too. And so this whole idea of culture, I want to ask you, why do you think culture has such a huge impact on organizations? I didn't learn anything about culture in college.
Right.
Why is it so important? I have some people say culture schmulture, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
I get that all the time. I was joking. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I said, I don't know why I decided to do the work that I feel like is such a hard sell sometimes. But it's clearly what God has given me a passion for, and it's what I hope for. And frankly, it's what I experienced in some of my early work experiences. Is I was a part of a great organizational culture, and I didn't even know it because it was just my first work experience as a 20-something, right? But remind me your question.
Yeah. I mean, why does culture have such a huge impact on organizations?
Yes. So a lot of times I will think about it this way. If, we all want our organizations to grow. We want them to grow up and to the right. We want to see growth. I don't think growth is bad. I think it's God ordained. We're supposed to fill the earth and subdue it. We're supposed to make disciples of all nations. Like those two commands there's an implication of growth in them. So I think there can be a very healthy desire for growth. So I don't think growth in and of itself is bad. I think how we approach growth is critical. But I think that desire to grow and speaking to a lot of church leaders, that desire to reach more people with the hope of the gospel is a good desire.
Yes. To
achieve that growth, that up and to the right trajectory, I say that there are like 3 core building blocks to support that. There is purpose. Why do we exist? What's our mission and our vision? So what's our purpose? The third block is our plan. How are we going to make that purpose happen? And so we need the plan, we need the strategy. The middle block is people. It's our culture. And it's the linchpin between the two. We can't achieve a plan or we can't implement a plan that achieves our purpose without our people. Right. And so what often happens, I see this happen in a lot of organizations, particularly in ministries, is we start with a clear sense of purpose. We know why we exist. That mission is clear. It's red hot. We are like ready to go. And so we jump to how. Okay, how do I make it happen? What's the plan? What's our strategy? What's our, how are we going to reach people, et cetera? And we have some people in the mix of doing all of that, but we haven't been intentional with how do I equip those people to do this? And that's where we start to, I referenced the term fractures earlier, and that's my visual there, is that we get fractures in that people block, and our strategy can't hold the weight because we haven't really built our people to be able to support the strategy, to support that plan. And so think of it this way. Young church or young organization starts, clear purpose, really passionate. You've got a handful of people, rallying around it, making it happen. We are seeing growth. The plan is happening. And all of a sudden we're adding some more staff, or we're adding more volunteers, or whatever that might be. And then we're asking questions about, why did they do that way? That's not us. That's not what we do. or I can't believe that happened. Like, we would never do that. Or so you start to hear those things in your culture, right? Well, what's happened is we haven't invested in the people. We haven't been, you used the word clarity earlier. We haven't given the clarity of, hey, what is important to us? So I often say culture is well established by clearly defined values that clarify our behavior. So what are the values that guide how we work together to achieve that mission? And so what happens is we're just feverishly going after that plan to make it all happen, but we've neglected to really equip our people to accomplish that. And when you have a handful of people, well, they kind of catch it. They kind of understand, well, this is the way John does it. So, well, but then as you grow, as soon as you're bigger than a group that can sit around the table together and have lunch together at a restaurant, as soon as you're bigger than that, you have to be intentional to teach. Here is who we are. Here's how we work together to achieve our mission. And so I think, so that's the framework for me, is that it's purpose, people, plan. And we often neglect that people block. And that's where then all of a sudden we're wondering why nothing's working. It feels like we're just, turning our wheels and like not getting anything done. So I probably belabored that a little bit.
No, that's good. That's good. Jenny, and we're really coming against a time here. But I have one more question, and I wondered if you would join us for another podcast, another episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is fun.
Because you mentioned values, and I think in the next episode, I'd really like us to dive into those in a deeper way. Do you feel like culture trumps anything else in an organization? Like, if you've got great vision, you've got a great playbook, it's noble, it's God ordained, but you have a culture that doesn't support that. Is culture always win, I guess, is what I'm asking. Is it always win, or am I overstating it?
I believe it does, because unless you're a one-person show and you're gonna do it all yourself, which even in and of itself, then you have a culture. You just decided to do it all on your own. But yes, I think you can have a tremendous vision. You can have a great strategy, and your culture will sabotage it every time if your culture is not healthy. And we've all experienced that, right? I mean, I hope we all haven't experienced it, but my suspicion is we've all experienced it, in that, we wonder why we can't get traction, and we get frustrated with the team around us. And typically it's because we haven't provided the level of clarity that we need to provide to enable people to be on mission with us and help create a culture that I visualize culture like a riverbed, right? That the culture flows through everything you do as an organization. But sometimes there are dry spots in our riverbed where we have blocked the culture. We have not in that we've inhibited the healthiest parts of the culture. So it's not flowing all the way through the organization like we would want it to. And therefore we've got some dry spots, we've got some frustrations, and we're not experiencing the culture that we really want to experience. So yes, I think it trumps everything.
Awesome. Jenny and John, thank you so much for I'm listening more than normal, because I'm learning so much listening to you two talk. So thank you for the conversation I benefited from, and now the conversation that others are going to benefit from as well. And Jenny and John, just real quick, how would people continue a conversation? You mentioned your the conference that you had. How would they contact that content, Jenny?
Yeah, if you will go to getforesight.com, it's the word get, the number 4 in the word sight, SIGHT. And you can find, somewhere on there, we've got access to the Culture Conference Team Edition somewhere. And or email me, Jenny, Jenni, at getforesight.com. But the Culture Conference Team Edition would be a great next step if you're curious. And how do I help create a healthy culture and create some conversations around it? Because every person on your team is shaping culture. So while you have disproportionate influence as a leader, every person is a part of helping create a dynamic and healthy culture. So inviting your team into the process is a key part of that as well.
Yeah. What we say is people learn what's important by watching what important people do. So it's
good.
important that all of your important people believe all the same things are important. John, what about you? We want to continue a conversation we talked about before we started recording. This has been a difficult season. Pastor leaders are tired, and maybe some of them are thinking thoughts that they would have thought a year or two ago about changing their life, changing the trajectory, and not sure if they're healthy enough to make those decisions. How would they have a conversation with you just for a tune-up, just for a conversation to see if there's something that you can help them with?
Sure, Jim. The best way for our listeners and watchers to do that is to go to convergecoach.com, click on the contact us link, and that will start a conversation with us. We offer a 30-minute free conversation with us. And if we can help you, great. If we can't help you, we probably know somebody who can, and we'll direct you to them.
Right on. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us today. It's been a great session here. We look forward to next week as we continue to hear from Jenni and John and their wisdom, and as you continue to lead from alignment.